I think it's a very simple but important one. In recent speeches and in the context of quite heated political debate and undermining of Māori rights and Treaty of Waitangi rights, he has presented the simple message that there is room for everybody. Mana motu hake, or what they call self-determination, means that there's room for everybody. So non-Māori people have no reason to be threatened by Māori people's wish to use their own language or wish to see the Treaty of Waitangi upheld, because the treaty, which was an agreement that set the terms of British settlement back in 1840, it did three things. And these three things are really important in securing a political space for both Māori and non-Māori people. So firstly, the treaty gave the British Crown the right to govern, but that wasn't the right to be government in the sense of dominating and controlling and those kinds of things that one normally associates with colonialism. The treaty also protected what we would call in New Zealand rangatiratanga, and that's basically Māori authority over their own affairs, including land and other resources. And it also gave Māori people the rights and privileges of citizenship on an equal footing with the rights and privileges of people of British descent. So there are mechanisms there for ensuring everybody's space, but also equality, and equality for Māori people as a right to be themselves in terms of using their own language and those kinds of things. And rangatiratanga, the right to authority over land, is one example, was really starting to be usurped by governments back in the 1850s. And that's when the Kingitanga movement was established. It was thought at the time that if the tribes, the iwi as we call them, could be united under one head, under a sovereign, then that would be good for political cohesion and resistance. And that's how the King movement came about.
Do you think things will pretty much be the same under the new Queen, his daughter? She is only 27 and only the second woman to be the Maori monarch. How prepared is she for the role?
Well, it's difficult because the people charged with selecting the new monarch after the death of the incumbent have considerable choice. It's not a monarchy that automatically passes to the oldest child, and it can in fact be allocated to whomever the chiefs involved in the decision determine. In practice, it's always gone to one of the children of the monarch, but it's not always been the oldest child, and it's not, as you've said, always been a male child. Ngāwai hono i te pō is the third child of Tuheitia. She has two older brothers, and for various reasons she was preferred over them to take up this position. She comes from what they call the kohanga generation. Back in the 1970s and into the 1980s and 90s, when the Māori language was at real risk of extinction, people organised themselves to set up what they call kohanga reo, which translates as language nests. And these were preschool institutions to teach kids to speak Māori and to make sure that the culture survived. Over time, that expanded into the years of schooling, and Ngāwai hono i te pō was one of the people who did all of her schooling in Māori and is part of a generation that is quite unapologetically Māori, quite confident to use their language, quite confident about being themselves in public life. And so I think for people of her age and similar, she represents a positive cultural assertion that people really value, and I think she will become something of a magnet for that kind of personality that many people want to develop for themselves.
How might her role differ from her father's, given the current challenges faced by Maori in New Zealand at the moment?
Well, the King movement's basic philosophy is kotahitanga, unity. And like I said, that's why the movement was formed back in the 1850s, to achieve political unity. And that remains its core purpose, to achieve unity among Māori people so that there's a cohesive assertion of Māori rights and a cohesive assertion of culture and those kinds of things. And so in that respect, her role won't differ. It will simply be a continuation of what Kingitanga has represented since 1858, when the first monarch was appointed. Obviously, her style will be different because she's a different person, comes from a different generation. And I think although her youth has been noted in some of the commentaries we've seen today, it's important to note that at the age of 27, she's roughly the same as the median age of the Māori population. So she's somebody that most Māori people can relate to on that demographic level. And I think that's important, and that will necessarily mean that she takes a different approach to her father and is perhaps seen a little bit differently. But that core purpose, I don't think, will change. And it's a particularly important purpose at the moment because at the end of last year, a new government was formed, and one of its first policy priorities was to put restrictions on the use of the Māori language in the public sector. And one of its, or at least one of its junior coalition partners, is about to introduce legislation into Parliament to rewrite the Treaty of Waitangi in such a way that it would in no way at all resemble the original agreement. And people are terribly worried about that and what that could mean. And that gives the Kingitanga a particularly important role. It's the oldest surviving political institution in New Zealand other than Parliament itself. It's older than any of the political parties that sit in Parliament at the moment. And it's able to provide leadership that stands aside and in some ways even above the day-to-day contests of political party conflict and confrontation.
Professor Dominic O'Sullivan, thank you so much for talking to us tonight.
Thank you.